Hi everybody, my name is Chris Enriquez. I play in the band Spotlights, and I'm from Revolver Magazine. You can follow me at Chris Enriquez Drums, at Spotlights Music, and at Revolver Mag. This is another episode of Age of Quarantine. Thanks for joining me this evening. I have a great guest tonight, Robin Stapps from the Ocean, out of Germany, on Metal Blade Records. That's what you hear in the background, which is their latest single off of their forthcoming album. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Phanerozoic, number 2, Mesozoic. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it up to Robin, but it doesn't matter because what does matter is that the music is great. They have a single out called Jurassic Cretaceous. I think I got that one right. And it's featuring Jonas from Catatonia, and it's a great fucking song, unbelievable. Anyway, it looks like he is ready to join me, so I'm just gonna stop talking and get Robin on the screen, and let's get cooking. And everybody, thanks for spending your evening with me. Let's give us a second here. Hey, how are you, Robin?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. I was just listening to your latest single for I don't know how many times today, but I don't know if you heard my intro, but it's unbelievable, man. I fucking can't get enough of it. So thanks for the music, man.
Thanks, man. Good to hear you like it.
Yeah. Well, so welcome to Age of Quarantine. This is a show that I started a couple months ago out of boredom, but I happen to work at Revolver Magazine, which is my day job. And the kind folks at St. Vitus let me use their platform. It's been a great thing to talk to our favorite artists about their lives, past and present, and their musical history. So I'll tell you one thing, Robin. This is the one time that you can talk as much as possible and tell us everything about yourself, because we're going to dive in, if that's cool with you.
Right on. Let's do it. Bring it on.
Very cool, man. Well, before we even get started, tell me, have you been managing to get through this insane pandemic?
Personally, actually pretty well, I have to say. It was going through different stages. You know, when it all happened, at first there was a lot of denial, because obviously a lot of shit got canceled and a lot of things we were looking forward to. There was Prognosis Festival in March. I think it was March 20th, right at the beginning, which was canceled. Then we had an Athens gig, and then a South America tour in May. And in the beginning, I was fighting it. I was just like, fuck, I'm going to keep pulling through with this tour, and just things are going to clear up eventually. And then it got to the point where it was becoming clear that would not happen. And then there was a phase of anger.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Anger is a great thing when you can be angry at something or someone, but you can't be angry at a virus. So it's, it just doesn't make sense. So eventually I just came to terms with it. And then, like utter peace kind of set in. And that, I think that was a really good experience, actually, because I learned to give up on clinging to certain expectations I had from this year and things I wanted to do, and just focus on other things. There's like a million other things you can do in life. And looking back at it now, there's so many things I actually did that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID-19. Lots of projects that I've just never found the time to do. So in the end, I'm grateful. And personally, I've had a pretty good time. I was stuck at my place with a girl that initially came to visit me and kind of became my girlfriend along the way, because she couldn't get away from me. So it was a pretty good time. Like we did a lot of cool stuff together, and very unsocial, just the two of us. But yeah, it was good personally. But every band member will give you a different answer. And this year was kind of doomed for us anyways, and like our bass player has this disease on his fingers, and he hasn't been able to touch his instrument for like a couple months. And our singer just had surgery to his ear, and they're both fine, and they will be fine again in a couple of weeks. But like they have been knocked out for a couple of weeks anyways. And if it wasn't for COVID-19, then we would have probably had to cancel a whole bunch of stuff from our end. So in the end, I'm kind of thankful everything happened the way it did.
For sure. That's a lot of stuff, man. That is a lot of stuff that you guys are dealing with. And I think that this whole situation right now has definitely forced us to have a new perspective on life and everything. And I think it's great that you decided to put out a new album and release a single during this time, because we need good music more than ever. It's been really cool to just have really good records coming out, and who knows when this is going to change. So we gotta get our creative flowing, our creative juices flowing somehow, you know.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we were debating it, obviously, if we should release a record now without being able to tour on it instantly. But in the end, I think it's a good time for releasing music. People are sitting at home, they're hungry for music, and we see it with Pelegic as well, with my label. Like, you know, people are ordering more vinyl than ever. So it's a good time to release records, I think, and you'll likely get more attention than you would normally get. So in the end, we decided to do it. But obviously, it's weird, like having a record out and then not being able to tour on it, and you're itching to just bring it out on the road. So yeah, it's weird times, but it's what it is, you know, and we'll deal with it as good as we can.
For the live show, I think, is going to build with the longer amount of time that people have to get familiar with the new songs, which is probably a little different from what we're used to, because you put something out, you start touring right before it comes out, that whole cycle that you're very familiar with. Now people will have had the record for, you know, 6-7 months. Who knows? I mean, hopefully it won't be that long, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's good too. Like I don't like to tour too soon after the release, when, you know, people are just not really familiar with the record, and it's a tough record to digest. Like, there's lots of information in it. And so it's good to have a bit of time between the actual release and the first tour, which ideally, if everything goes according to plans, will happen in January anyways. If things are back in Europe, back to normal in Europe by then, we have a tour booked. But yeah, we'll see. At this stage, nobody knows. And yeah, we were supposed to tour the US in August, finally, after 6 years or something. I think the last time we were over there was in 2014, if I remember correctly. And that also got canceled because of all this bullshit. So yeah, we're hoping that we can do that next year somehow, because we're really itching to get back over there. It's been too long. And yeah, but right now, who knows when you guys will let us aliens come into the country again with the potential of a virus. And
I normally wouldn't get too political because of the venue and everything, but I think we all can agree on one thing. I don't think any of us are proud of our country right now in America. So I'm personally embarrassed about how we're handling things, and I see Europe is getting the shit together. Not only I'll stick to topic in terms of music. I see shows happening sooner over there than over here. But on the positive side, I think that because it's been so long since we've had the ocean here, when you do come, there's going to be a lot of excitement around your return. So you know, let's knock on wood and hope that we get to see you sooner than later.
Yeah, man, totally.
Yeah, we're going to get into the record label, that the imprint and the new record. I like to kind of go in I have some questions in front of me, and I'm going to go dive into your past a little bit. But before we do that, really quick, again, during this pandemic, you mentioned working on some projects. Has it forced you to maybe not force is a bad word, but has it inspired you to write and get creative? And are there things that we could expect, like quarantine performances or playthroughs or anything like that?
Yeah, we're discussing doing the obvious thing, like a live stream when the record comes out now, which has been done so many times. But I'm still keen to try and do that in a way that kind of like captures our live performance on video, which is difficult because there's not a lot of light. But yeah, I really would like to do that. We're looking into the logistics of that now. And I just got back from Spain, actually. Flights have been open again here since July 1st. And I was writing new music for the past 2 weeks, and it's been going really well. I mean, the record is done. It's not out yet, but it's done, and it's been done for a while. The material on it is actually going back to 2016, 2017. Some songs were even written in 2015. You know, I always only write in the summer months. And we started recording drums for both Phanerozoic albums in early 2018. So by that time, all the material was basically written. So it's already a a bit aged for us. So it's time. Although the world hasn't even heard it yet, it's weird. But yeah, that's how it is. So yeah, I was writing some new stuff and also some completely unrelated projects, but that still have to do with Pelegic, with the label. We just recently started Pelegic Coffee.
Oh,
That's
hell yeah.
to do for a while. It's basically the idea to make custom coffee blends that kind of reflect the music of some of our artists. So we're starting off with an ocean coffee that is very wild and lots of robusta, you know, and really strong. And then we have a coffee for the Japanese post-rock band Mono as well that is very reverberant and with a kind of a nutty dark chocolate vibe and just really epic. And it's when you listen to it, when you listen to the music, you really see the similarities between the coffee and the music. And we've been collaborating with a great roaster from Berlin that is a music lover as well, and he's really put great attention to making these blends. And we did a blind tasting with a bunch of people, and we all recognized instantly this is the ocean coffee, this is the Mono coffee. So that's also something I've been wanting to do for a while and just never had the time to do. So you know, that's what this COVID-19 caused downtime allows you to just look into other projects that otherwise wouldn't simply be possible. And that's a good side of it.
What's the socials for Pelegic that everyone can follow so they can purchase the coffee and anything else related?
The ocean coffee is live in the shop already. The Mono coffee, not yet. We're launching the project officially only in August. But you can go to pelegic-records.com and you find both the ocean pre-orders and the coffee there, basically.
And is there an Instagram as well?
Oh, yeah. Pelegic Records, all written in all one word.
Okay, great. Well, I want to ask, so the band, we're going to get to a couple other things that you kind of answered one of my questions about songwriting, but I'm going to delve into that a little later. I'm going to start with your past a little bit. The band started 20 years ago, which is crazy. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I have always been familiar with the ocean. Every time I put the band on or heard a song, I was always like, this is great. It took me a little bit longer than I want to admit to like really dive in, which was more recently. And when I did, I straight up was like, Jesus Christ, like how did I snooze on this entire catalog for so long? And I listened to your band so much this week, just playing catch up. And I heard the band because I have a lot of friends that were fans. I just never really dove in, and it's really cool to kind of like have this project now where you have 20 years of material to kind of catch up on. And I definitely feel like I missed out. But talk about when you started, how it all came together, because you had 40 members, I read on your Wikipedia, before getting a lineup, and then eventually settled on one. So walk me through that a little bit, just and indulge me.
Well, I don't know the exact number, but in the early days, we did have a lot of coming and going, like a lot of people in and out of the band. And we had this massive underground rehearsal space that we rented for really cheap money. Some of us also lived there for a while, cheaper than housing. And there were always people there when we rehearsed that were somehow, sometimes band members, sometimes not. Sometimes we just didn't really know. So at times we had like 3 or 4 different guitar players that would play with us. Usually not at the same time, but whoever was available would play a gig with us. And that allowed us to actually do more than with a fixed lineup of people that have limited time. But in the end, it just turned out to be really, I don't know, like the more people you have in the band, the more you need to rehearse with them, obviously. And the less likely it becomes that you will ever get out of the rehearsal space, you know. And so we spent 3 years just rehearsing and drinking and having a great time, but with absolutely zero audience. And then I didn't want that anymore. I wanted to have more of a, like, you know, stable lineup in a way, but it took some time. I guess it's due to the fact that as a new starting band, you just have not much to offer. And all the good musicians, they're usually already taken by the bands that have something to offer, like gigs and tours and record labels and things like that. So it's difficult to find players that are good and also people and that are committed to it. And so that's why I think there was lots of going back and forth. And also I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I'm a creative despot. I think I'm not easy to deal with, or I was not easy to deal with back then. I think I'm a lot more chilled right now. And everyone in the band now is a lot more involved than ever before. But back then, yeah, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. And so a lot of people just didn't want to put up with that. And yeah, then it took a couple of years until it consolidated into a group of like 6 people, and that happened for the first time in like 2004, 2005, I think. And then we had different phases. We had a phase with mostly Swiss band members, except myself, that lasted from like 2007 to 2010. Then we had a singer from the UK for a while. And at one point, we just decided to make this the necessity a principle in a way, you know, and just say, okay, like we're just going to call it a collective and make it a principle that different people coming and going, because it's cool. It brings in fresh inspiration. You know, new people always bring in that fresh breeze of inspiration, and that can be really cool. But like I said, it can also get tiring. And yeah, since 2012, 13, or actually even before that, we've been more or less the same group of people now. Loic is the singer. He's the longest in the band since 2009.
Right.
Then Paul joined in 2013, and Matthias joined in 2014, I think, the bass player. And David, our new guitar player, he's the kid in the band. He only joined 4 years ago. Yeah. But since then, no change. And now it feels great. It's a really good chemistry, you know. I think I've had a lot of issues with Loic for quite some time, and now we're really good friends, and really made peace with each other, and really learned to appreciate each other as musicians and as friends. And I think it's also just a matter of growing up, and you know, like we're all really appreciative of having the chance of being in this band, to travel and tour and do cool shit that is not a fucking boring day job, you know. Make that the center point of our lives, and everybody feels like that. So when we go out, there's a lot of just mutual appreciation based on that fact that we have this thing together, and that nothing can take that from us, you know. That's really strong.
Absolutely. And then, you know, as a musician, I can relate very much to the idea that you grow up especially when you're in a band for that long, your attitude, you're changing as a human being, musically, personally, professionally.
Totally.
When it becomes professional, you really start to realize, this is my office. I have to exist, and this is my company. So it's like all the people that come in and out of the band, it's literally like running a company and having old employees and new employees. I mean, it sounds weird when you call your bandmates employees, but I think you know what I'm getting at. And you got to keep you know, you got to keep it going, especially when there's demand for it, and on all that stuff. But let's talk about the music, because the music is really what is the you know, the most important thing that people gravitate to, which is, you know, I'm reading my own cue cards here because I took some notes of what I want to talk about. But what I noticed is that not only are you guys are incredibly technical, but it's not self-indulgent, in my opinion. And the reason why I say that, I play drums, I play guitar, and I listen to a lot of different types of music. And you run the gamut when you're in a technical band of, like, if you're listening to a guy or a girl or whoever, just almost like, you know, are they just playing for themselves, or are they paying attention to, like, the listener? And you guys really, in my opinion, have balanced the idea of melody, songwriting, and technicality. Talk to me about your creative process, and how does a song come together? Because it just seems like you're always writing.
Well, it's been like that for most of the career of the band, up until pretty much Phanerozoic. There was one exception, Anthropocentric, a record we released in 2010. There were a couple of tracks that I didn't write myself, that the Swiss guys wrote back then, the band. And now on Phanerozoic 2, there's actually 3 tracks that Paul initially wrote, our drummer. So this is a more collaborative effort. And generally, I'm still the guy writing most of the songs, and I do that in seclusion usually. I just need to isolate myself voluntarily, you know, to write music. I just can't write it at home in Berlin, although I have my guitars behind me here. But
where are you, by the way?
I mean, no, I play, but I just can't write music here. Like, there's too many distractions usually. There's gigs, there's the label work, there's friends, and I need to put myself in a place that is a little bit away from everything, and also ideally in a setting, in a good, like in a beautiful natural environment that just inspires me to write music for some reason. Being close to the ocean, as cliche as that sounds, just makes me write music, you know. It's like that. And so I usually write tracks with just my guitar, and I program drums and do pre-productions, and then work out. I used to work out the tracks in great detail. Now, for this new record, was the first time where I didn't really do that so much, where I forced myself to stick to more or less raw pre-productions in order to not get too attached to my idea of how I wanted certain things to be, both sound-wise as well as with regards to, you know, like the actual instrumentation, or, you know, what the other guys would be playing. And there was a challenge for me, because I have that tendency to work everything out until the very last detail of every ghost note on the snare.
Right.
But you know, like it's hard to let go, but it's also good to let go when you trust the people you have in the band, and when you know that they're all kick-ass musicians and that they understand, you know, what a song needs. And I've learned to do that with the Phanerozoics. I think Phanerozoic 1 was the first record that we actually rehearsed as a band, you know, like for a month in the rehearsal space before we went to the studio. We've never done it like that. Like Pelegic, I wrote all by myself, and then we recorded the record, and then afterwards we were like, all right, now let's figure out how to do that live. And yeah, it was different for those records. We really rehearsed together, and we worked out on details. Although I had still written most, like all the songs on Phanerozoic 1, we worked on them together, and we fine-tuned them and live tested them, you know. And yeah, so it's a more collaborative effort. But songwriting for me is a kind of intimate process. You know, we're not a band that jams in the room, jams riffs, and like Paul's tracks as well. He wrote them himself and played them to us, you know. And I think it's also partially because we're just used to everyone living in different countries. I mean, Paul, David, and me live in Berlin, but Matthias lives in Sweden, in Stockholm, and Loic lives in Switzerland and has been for ever since I know it. So, you know, like we can't just meet up spontaneously and say, oh, let's just have some beers and rehearse. We have to plan everything. So we usually get together before tour or before recording session, and then we're all really focused and everybody knows already what to do. And then yeah, I think that's also because of that our songs are being crafted the way they are.
I think that everything that you mentioned is very fascinating, because, you know, I always think it's fascinating when somebody's able to pull off not only what I was saying earlier, technical music that's not self-indulgent and still has a lot of melody, because you have vocals and then melodic vocals that kind of go from aggressive to not. There's a lot of dynamics, but the idea of not writing a pop structure, you don't follow necessarily a pop structure where it's like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, over. It's like a very fascinating, even if you listen to Rush or something like that, there's some kind of rhyme or reason. Now, I guess where I'm going with this, which is the cheesy question that people always ask, when you were growing up, talk to me about what you grew up on. Was it more prog rock? You know, I know from the collabs that you did, because I grew up on a lot of hardcore and a lot of the, you know, I hate the word metalcore. I'm 40 years old, so what I'm talking about is Converge, early Cave In, Coalesce. You had members of Coalesce and Converge on your track. So what was the stuff you were growing up on? Was it hardcore? Was it prog rock? Was it a little bit of everything? Talk to me about what was your inspiration.
It could be further away from prog rock, man. Like, we always get put at the corner, but I think no one in the band actually listens to much what people consider prog rock these days. I grew up in the hardcore scene of the 90s. I grew up listening to bands like Unbroken, Groundwork, old school hardcore stuff as well. Sick of It All, I think, was my first show that I went to.
Dude,
and,
same here.
What's that?
Same here.
Yeah, man.
They're actually going to be. I'm doing a 2-hour special on this show with the brothers of Sick of It All soon.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Keep going, man. Keep going.
Yeah, we were just listening to Just Look Around the other day with my friend in Spain, and what a fucking great record. Like, that was one of the first records that got me into hardcore, I think. And yeah, and then a lot of more abrasive stuff that happened in the mid 90s, later 90s. Also lots of great bands from Europe, like Breach, and you know, and the Swedish straight edge stuff, Abinanda and The Refused and all that started off at as a straight edge bands playing this, what they called new school hardcore, but turned into really like different entities that were just like a category of their own. And yeah, and then New Roses happened at one point, and the Swans, of course, and all this type of stuff. And this is much more my musical upbringing than like something like Dream Theater or something like that I always hated. I always and just like this, what you mentioned before, you know, this over technicality and like just the show of playing. I don't know. We're never going to be a band that's going to release a songbook as a merch item or something like that. You know, it's just not us. Like I grew up playing the guitar, trying to figure out power chord riffs from bands that I loved because they had this raw life energy, and you know, I wanted to go stage diving as a 15-year-old kid and sing along, and not because, you know, I was getting off on like solo lead playing. Not to discredit that. I mean, obviously there's lots of great prog bands, and we always like when we tour Australia, for example, there's a huge prog scene there, and they're very open-minded, very supportive, and they like us, and we love touring there. You know, it's great bands, great people, and it's absolutely awesome. But it's also a lot of times not really where we come from, you know, but that doesn't matter. It's if you get along, and if people like us as a band, I'm thankful if all these guys can come to our shows. And so it's very interesting, but we're at heart, we're a hardcore band.
Dude, I fucking got really excited when you said that because I couldn't relate. But I'm going to ask you a totally off script random question, but do you happen to be friends with the guys in Cult of Luna?
Yeah, sure.
I just started playing in a band with Johannes, and he flew here, and we talked about our influences, and we actually went to go see Refused because they're all friends, and my band Spotlights toured with Refused, and we talked about the music we grew up on. You know, Cult of Luna are not.
Yeah.
You know,
I had plenty of conversations with him about that. He grew up exactly at that time in a different part of Europe, but like listening to the same bands, and like also lots of small Swedish bands like Shield and all this Desperate Fight record stuff. You know that, yeah. We've had that conversation.
We talked about that a lot. I'm in my band gets compared to you know, Failure and Hum and My Bloody Valentine, but I grew up listening to Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags. It's like, I'm a hardcore kid. I was wearing a Judge t-shirt last night. But, you know, same with Johannes. He was talking about the Revelation catalog. Anyway, I don't want to get too off tangent, but I think that just made me like your band even more. It's like so cool to know that. And I hope we cross paths because I have a feeling we could talk about that forever. But
totally. And I gotta show you some love for Spotlights as well. Your latest EP is just fucking mind blowing, man. I love it. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you.
It just flows seamlessly. Like I love how you split it up into these 4 parts, you know, and you don't really, when you listen to it, it's just like one piece of music, and it's awesome. Like I really love it.
Hey, that's awesome, man. I hope we can do some shows together at some point.
Yeah.
What was how did you learn how to play your instrument and learn your craft?
By figuring out things that I liked. I had a teacher at one point, but he always wanted to kind of drag me in the wrong direction and show me things that I wasn't really interested in. So most of it I just learned from, just like trying to listen to things and figure out by ear what was going on there, you know. And obviously it helped that some friends showed me some techniques and certain basics, but a lot of it came from that, like listening to something and knowing very quickly how you're going to play it. I think that's the greatest achievement as a musician when you're growing up. And it was mostly like that I learned how to play the guitar.
It sounds like you, and I get this from your music a lot. I feel like even though I don't know you personally, like when I listen to your band, it's almost like you could feel the character of the people writing it, because it's kind of like ethereal, and it's got calmness, and it just has all the, you know, it's hard to explain. But from what you just said, it sounds like you learned how to play with feeling, which is so strange when you like talk to somebody that had a guitar teacher or a drum teacher and they only know how to play technical and they just are missing that. So it sounds like even though you were taught, you figured out how to play with feeling, which is so interesting. And it's not really a question. It's more of a statement, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, man. I mean, it's like learning a language in a way, you know. You can learn it in a mathematical way, like when you go to school and they teach certain rules of grammar and you know, pronunciation and things like that, and you kind of learn it by the books, and you apply these rules, and you're always thinking about what you're going to say next. And if you master that, you can, yeah, you can speak a language perfectly. But look at how a kid learns a language, you know, just by repeating what their parents do, basically. And that's it's funny when they just babble random nonsense that they picked up somewhere and they don't even know what that means. But this is the more intuitive and the, like, probably the better way of learning it, you know, to just yeah, to intuitively try to understand it and go by feeling, to reproduce certain things that you see being applied in certain situations, and to get a feeling for that, this situational, like, understanding of human relations. And music is just like that. It's like it can be approached in a mathematical way, and you can do that great and, you know, achieve amazing things. But it's also possible to just completely ignore that side.
Right,
And,
right.
follow your guts and see where it takes you. And I think the ocean is somewhere in between. The feeling part is definitely predominant, but I also do have these phases when I just sit down and try to work something out, you know. And sometimes also doors open in the songwriting process. When something happens by accident, you just shift a bar or something on one instrument, you're like, oh fuck, this sounds really cool, you know, things like that. So it's like it's a bit of a mixed approach, but generally definitely feeling. Like I hear things in my head, and then I try to figure out how to play them. And it's not that I think on paper what possibilities of, you know, combining harmonies do I have for the next section of the song. So
Sounds like your punk rock roots kind of shining through your process a little bit.
totally, man.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to mispronounce a lot of stuff, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I do my best. But Fluxion came out in 2004. Aeolian came out in 2005. At what point did you feel like you were starting to really get attention? You were starting to really build an audience. Did it happen quickly, or did it take a while? You know,
it definitely took a while, man. We've been around for 20 years. That's just ridiculous if I think about that. State the truth. And the first couple of years was just like, actually, it was like we were very dedicated to what we were doing in the beginning. Like, we were rehearsing a lot. Like, some weeks we were rehearsing every day, but it's also because we just love being in that room and, you know, hanging out together. But it took a long time until things really started getting going. That was with Fog Diver that we released in 2003, our first EP. And we had a small German label that released that, and there was like press for it. And that was the first time that it was going in a direction. And then we did a bunch of tours in 2004 and 2005, mostly shorter tours in Europe. But yeah, I think it wasn't really until Precambrian that there was an audience for what we were doing. And that was like 7 years after the band was incepted, you know? So I don't know, we're definitely not like a one-hit wonder.
No, I mean, and honestly, like, I don't know, we can go off on a tangent here for a second, but like, it's just, you're in the wrong industry if you're trying to like do that right now with a rock band. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
You know, and that's the greatest thing about having a cult following, which you obviously have and built. Those are that's a loyal fan base that will stay with you for 20 years and longer. And the music that you make doesn't go out of style, right? So that's the beauty of doing something that's true to your character and what comes natural to you once it starts to resonate, which you know, it obviously did, because you ended up on Metal Blade. You know, that was obviously later on down the line. But how did you end up getting the attention of a legendary label like that? How did that start?
That was actually with demos of songs that ended up on Aeolian mostly, which was the first record on Metal Blade. We just sent it around back then. It must have been in like 2004 or something like that, 2003 or 2004. And Andreas from the European office liked it. He loved, I remember Queen of the Food Chain, the second to last track on Aeolian. That was one of the tracks, that demo. And yeah, he was into it, and we started talking. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you said before, it just takes some time to build an audience, I think, you know, not only because people aren't ready for you, it's also because you're not ready, you know. like you evolve as a band and as a musician. And obviously looking back at the stuff that we have released now 15 years ago, it doesn't sound contemporary anymore. I see certain ideas in there that are kind of still comparing to what I do today in my songwriting, but I've grown up as a musician, and everyone else in the band has. It's completely different people now also compared to back then. I'm the only one that was in the band back then. And so obviously a lot of things have happened, but yes, we have grown a solid following now, and I'm very thankful for that. It's people who really appreciate what we do and who bear with us, you know, because every record is a challenge, and we're not going to be that band that makes the same record twice and looks for a formula that just works and sells. Like, I think we always need to challenge ourselves to try something with the record, or at least set the paradigm in a slightly different direction, you know, and that can be a challenge. I think listening to Phanerozoic 2, for a lot of people that loved Phanerozoic 1, is going to be a challenge because it's a very different record. But I feel that this following that we have, and I'm very, very thankful for that, is just a bunch of people that have been with us for a while and that have really come to appreciate the fact that you don't really know what to expect from us with a next record, you know, and still there's something that makes it sound ocean, however different the records may be. And yeah, that's really great and reassuring to have that. I just feel like we could do anything now, you know, and we would probably get away with it.
Absolutely. I mean, that, like you said, because you build this fan base, you earn their respect, and the anticipation hopefully is that they want to know where you naturally want to take your music because they've stuck with you. Speaking of fans, I'm only going to take a few questions which I have in front of me because you know, we have 20 minutes left, and I want to get to kind of like through all of this stuff to like where you are today. But we'll take one here from Jake Argue. I don't know if this is a question, but do you guys see yourself incorporating more songs from Fluxion into your live set when you get back on the road?
To be honest, I don't see that happening. On one hand, yes, I would like to put some older tracks into the set list because we haven't really been doing that on the last couple of tours. The focus was clearly on Pelegic and the Phanerozoic 1 album, and we had like one or two heliocentric tracks in it, and some Precambrian. You know, we did this Precambrian anniversary tour 2 years ago, so we've been playing songs from those records, but from Fluxion and Aeolian, we haven't been playing songs live in a long time. And it's not that I hate these records. I think they're good for what they are. You know, they're 15 years old. I can't listen to them because they don't sound contemporary, and you know, there's a lot of things I would like to do different. But still, I can imagine myself playing those songs. But you just have to set a focus, and like the focus in recent years has just been more on new material. It's just more representative of what we are, and that we feel more as a band than songs that I still have a connection to because I was in the band back then. But the other 4 band members, they've never played this live, you know. So for them, it would be equally time consuming as learning a new song, and then that old song is maybe not half as good as the new song. I mean, arguably, but and so yeah,
they're not
I'm not
easy.
sure we will do that, but there's like one track that I would like to play live again in a shortened version. That's The Greatest Bane. It's like yeah, it's the closing track on Fluxion basically, and that song I remember still playing that live. We did play that live many times, and I remember like oddly the feeling connected to playing that particular track live, and it was a good one. So I would love to do that, and also the Human Stain, the second track.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's also not easy for you guys to just be like, oh, let's just do that. I'm sure it takes forever to get especially if they didn't play on it back then, the amount of time that it's going to consume to even learn it.
Yeah, digging old files and all the backing tracks. There's lots of strings on that record, you know, and like, yeah, it would just take time, and we'd rather focus on the present tense and the future than the past too much. But although, yeah, I understand some people would love to hear that, but maybe one.
I'm going to take 2 more questions from the audience that I have in front of me before we get back into mine. Christian J. Perry, I really love it when you guys perform your records from start to finish. Any chance you'll be playing Phanerozoic 2 album incomplete?
yes, that chance is there. I can't promise it yet, but I think we want to do a couple of shows where we play actually both records in their entirety when they're out. We haven't really discussed the logistics of that yet, but it would make sense. And we've already been playing pretty much every track from the first part of the record. We're going to start rehearsing the second track this fall. And the plan is to play every song and maybe even do a live stream where we play the record.
Awesome. I also want to just recognize that we got some love from both Portugal and Australia, people from different countries watching, and I want to thank you for always supporting the show and tuning in. I'm going to take one more question from the audience that somebody submitted in the box. Okay, Eric, E-Cigs for Legs. Orosirian is a favorite ocean song of mine. Is there anything you can share about working with the late Caleb Schofield on this song? And yeah, hold on. I want to give a huge shout out to Caleb Schofield. We had Old Man Gloom on the show a couple of weeks ago with, God damn, I'm just like fucking completely blanking on the guest that we had, and we're friends too. I'm such an asshole. The drummer of Old Man Gloom was on Santos. And we also, last week we had Steve Brodsky, and we love all of the music that Caleb made. So yeah, why don't you talk about that work you did with Caleb?
I remember the time when we were recording Precambrian, and I remember talking to Caleb. I've never actually met him in person. It was something that happened entirely via email. I was always a huge Caven fan and loved everything he's done musically. And Aeolian and Precambrian were records where we wanted to have different vocalists for pretty much every song. You know, it was like the concept of the record to have different vocal styles. And at one point, I just got to the point, I always had like a certain voice in mind, which was always obviously someone I knew from a certain band. So at one point, rather than trying to find someone who can imitate that, like, let's just reach out to these people and ask them. And practically a lot of them were into it. You know, we had Caleb, we had Nate from Converge and Open Gloom, and Thomas from Breach as well, and like a whole bunch of different vocalists. And that's how that happened. Most of that, like, we didn't, I mean, Nate's vocals, we actually recorded in Berlin after a Converge show. They just came over to our rehearsal space, and we, you know, took like half an hour or something to record that at our place. But most of the other tracks, including Caleb's collaboration, they were just done, like he recorded that in the States and sent it to us. And yeah, I loved it. Like, it just fit the vibe of that track perfectly. You know, I didn't give him any instructions on like what to do vocal wise, and he just instantly felt which direction that song has to be taken and did it right. And yeah, it breaks my heart that we never had the chance to do that live. I would have loved to do that, and he's definitely one to be missed.
He not only was he an amazing bass player, but that scream was unbelievable.
That voice is just like, yeah, like nothing else.
Absolutely. And the guys that you got also, Nate Newton, Sean Ingram from Coalesce. Actually, if anybody watching this does not know Coalesce, because they're kind of like the missing band that never really got their due as Converge did and all the other greats like Caven, man, Coalesce, Sean Ingram, what a voice. I love that you guys collaborated with these folks. And on your new single, you have Jonas from Catatonia. I was talking about the new single earlier. Well, how did you link up with him? Talk about that experience.
I started talking to Jonas when we were in the studio recording for Precambrian in 2006, and they were in the studio recording The Great Cold Distance, which then later became a Catatonia record that was really like opened the door for me. You know, I think that was like one of the first records that reconciled really heavy music with clean vocals, which up until that point I wasn't that much into, but that record I really, really loved. And back then I asked him if he wanted to collaborate, and he was into the idea, but it didn't happen for timing reasons. We were short before the mix and they were in the studio, so it didn't happen. And then we just both forgot about it for the next 10 years. And then they invited us to support them for a Great Cold Distance anniversary show in Romania. It was like a one-off show they played in Romania 3 years ago. And then we kind of started talking about this again. and he was still into the idea of doing something on one of our records. And so I just sent him the track. I kind of knew that this Devonian track would work really well with his voice, so I sent him that particular track, and he liked it, and he sent us back his first tracks, first vocal drafts when we were in Iceland recording drums, and they were perfect right from the start. You know, like
that's great.
Instantly got it, yeah. And this, for the second part, similar story to that. It wasn't really planned from the beginning. It happened relatively short notice that we reached out to him again when we were actually on tour with Leprous in Europe. And what happened is that our synth guy changed a part of the song entirely, so the already recorded vocals with Luik didn't work for that part. We were on tour, we couldn't studio to re-record them, so someone said, hey, just send them to Jonas, you know, and that's exactly what we did. And like 3 days later he sent us back his take on that new part, and it was again like awesome on the spot. And so yeah, that's how it happened the second time. Makes sense.
On that song, are those horns that I hear?
Horns, yeah.
That's what I thought. It sounds like trumpets.
Yeah, there's like we recorded like a whole brass section consisting of 2 players, but like multiple tracks. So there's horns, trumpets, and trombones basically that we recorded in Berlin. That's at the part of the song, yeah. Fucking
genius, man. It's so like out of the box for that kind of music, and it just works. It's great.
Dylan did on, was it Milk Lizard or I don't know, but like there's one with like pretty aggressive brass section in it, and I thought that was really weird, but in a really cool way when I heard that initially. Yeah.
Right. And it's funny you bring that up, because I mean the way they did it was cool. We're talking about the Dillinger Escape Plan, Milk Lizard, where it's like kind of this like upbeat rockin' song, and it kind of like, but the way you guys did it in like a dark kind of ethereal thing, it was very original and very unique, and it worked, and challenging to a player for sure to listen to that and be like, oh, you can do that, and it works. It's very cool. Guys, check out that single on Spotify or streaming. The album comes out on the 25th of September. Now, let's talk really quickly about Pelegic Records. How did the idea come about? We talked about it earlier. Everyone follow on Instagram and buy the coffee. But how did that idea come about? And just give us a little brief history there.
It originally came from just me wanting to repress old Ocean records. I think it was Fluxion, which were out of print on CD, and Metal Blade didn't want to do it back then. And so they told me, why don't you do it yourself? And I considered that. And then actually Andreas hooked me up with a whole bunch of distribution content. And I jumped into the cold water and just pressed a bunch of CDs and started writing these distributors. And I saw a deal with SPV, a company that went into bankruptcy half a year later, and I had all my CDs spread over half of Europe and had to get them back in small boxes. It was a bit of a nightmare, but I also enjoyed releasing that. And then the second record, or second or third record we did was Goddess and Astronauts, All Is Violent Right on vinyl. That actually sold really well. And I just always enjoyed not only the musical side of things, as in playing music, but also like the organizational side, you know, like management and organizing things. I've always loved to look at music from different angles. So it was something that stuck with me and resonated with me. And then it just grew from there. Then we started very, like in the beginning, it was just a basement enterprise. You know, like we had vinyl in my basement. We were packing staircase, Steve and me, my first coworker at Pelegic, and it's been like that for many years until like 2014 or 2015. And then by that time, my whole basement, and like not just my private basement, but all the like catacombs, the alleyways in the basement were like, you know, tucked to the ceiling with vinyl boxes. House Owners Association came to me and they were like you can't do this anymore, you know, because of fire protection and things. And then we got a warehouse in Berlin in Kreuzberg, and from that moment on, we've been doing it more seriously and professionally. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. And now we have a catalog of 153 releases. Oh my God, this is also crazy. Since 2009. So it's been like 10 years. And I don't know how we released so many records. It's crazy. But yeah, we did.
I looked at the time frame. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. It really is. There's Paul, the Ocean drummer, who also works for Pelegic. By the way, he's going to release a drum playthrough for Jurassic Cretaceous tomorrow, so make sure to check that out. Pretty epic. And yeah, he also works for Pelegic, and now we have like 4 full-time employees basically working for the label, and a lot of exciting music coming out. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
sure
where can everybody watch the playthrough tomorrow?
The playthrough is going to be up on the minor drums site or the Tama site. Paul's going to hate me for not knowing that, but like, you know, from endorsers. But you'll find it, I'm sure. Just go to the Ocean page; it'll be shared there as well.
I see one more question that I like from the audience. We have the 10 minutes left before we get before Instagram kicks us off. So no one's. I hope I'm saying this right. This person's name. No one's M4. No one's M. Forker says, how do you get these amazing ideas of writing albums with those themes like Pelegial?
Pelegial has actually been an idea I've had for a long time before I started writing it. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you play in a band called The Ocean to make a record about the ocean, right? Or like the Pelegial or the Pelegic is the open water, like any water that is kind of far away from the coast. And it's also a term for these depth zones going through the ocean. So it just kind of made sense to make a record about that. And I've had the idea to do that and to make the music really be that journey from the surface to the bottom of the sea that would get like progressively more claustrophobic, you know, and like lower in tuning and slower tempo and everything. The idea is very simple. I've had that for a long time. I just didn't really know how to approach that. And so I made 2 other records first, which was the Centric Records, while I already had that idea. That I had that ever since 2009, basically, that idea for Pelegial. And I just didn't dare to approach it. And then one summer I had a good go at it somehow, and it just seemed to work out. And then the whole record was written actually pretty quickly over the course of maybe 2 weeks or something like that. So,
God damn, that's pretty wild. 2 weeks to put something out like that. Now, let's shift to the new record. Now, I don't want to sabotage this. Can you pronounce the record? The one that's coming out.
Phanerozoic 2, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, and yes, we make absolutely unpronounceable album titles, which is great fun. Always watching you guys struggle to pronounce it I just love it. You actually did really well. So, and nobody is supposed to know how to pronounce that or what that means. It doesn't matter. We just love to fuck people up with that.
Okay. What is the theme on the new record?
The Phanerozoic is a chapter in Earth's history. It's actually the chapter that we currently still live in, but it started 541 million years ago and still carries on into the present tense. So there's this geological, paleontological album concept of this double record. Actually, the first part, Phanerozoic 1, was also in the same line or whatever. And yeah, it's also connecting with our Precambrian record in 2007, which was the eon before the Phanerozoic. So all these 3 records, they somehow belong together. And why did we go back now to continuing that? Because after Precambrian, we released the Centric Records, which had a totally different topic, and then Pelegial. Well, we felt that there was this missing link, which conceptually is the Phanerozoic, you know, after the Precambrian. And musically also, there was a record missing, I felt somehow, that connected our old days of Precambrian and Aeolian with the newer the ocean of the Centrics and Pelegial. And I wanted to make that record that somehow bridges our past with our present. And that's what this record became. And I started becoming aware of that when I was writing it, because a lot of the material reminded me on Precambrian. But then when Loic added vocals to it, you know, he took it into a very different direction, obviously. So it was kind of like turning out to do that. And yeah, that's why it made sense to go back there to this point, I think. Did I lose your question? I'm sorry.
Not at all. That was a great, no, I really just wanted to get the background and theme, and I think you answered it perfectly. I want to plug it right now. Again, it's coming out on September 25th. There is a box set, a deluxe edition, an instrumental CD, and there are fantastic T-shirts with a beautiful design that you can order through Pelegic or Metal Blade. And like I said, the single with Jonas from Catatonia is out right now. Let's talk about something that I like to ask all of my guests before we end. It's a little off tangent, but and some people skip the question. It's up to you, but it's kind of like the desert island thing. We're stuck in quarantine. Some of us have been isolated. If you had 5 records that you had to be stuck with during the quarantine, what would they be and why?
Okay, that's a question normally you would consider and think about for a long time, because any wrong choices you take there, you're going to be fucked, right? They're going to stay with you. So I don't have that time. I'll just throw out a few names. Breach, Venom, Neurosis, Time of Grace.
Hell yeah.
Swan's Soundtrack for the Blind.
A great one.
Damn.
You got 2 more.
The remaining 2.
I love this. It always gets people, man. Some people do it quickly. Some people need some time. Some people get overwhelmed.
The thing that makes it difficult now is that I just want to go back to records I've known ever since my youth. But no, you don't want to listen to that stuff. You know, that's stuff you're emotionally attached to. But now I would like to actually take out something more contemporary. But then that stuff, I don't know how long that will last, really. So, and with, you know, Spotify playlists and everything, we're just everything's available all the time, and it's so convenient to just go back and to not have to make that choice, you know. So it's really difficult. But I think I would choose something entirely different, more calm. Maybe a Bohren record or something for a totally different vibe. Maybe even something electronic. But I would really have to think about what exactly to take. I just released a Spotify playlist with 120 songs and 12 hours of music in it. That is a pretty thorough cut through all different styles of music that I'm personally interested in. And I'm sure it would be something from that list, but I don't want to make those remaining 2 choices right now.
Hey, no worries. You got 3 albums, and we just found out about a playlist that you made. What's your name? Is it just on Spotify to follow you? Is it just?
It's the Ocean Spotify profile. It's called Isolation Medication, and yeah, it's a 12 hours playlist with a lot of Pelegic bands in it, but also a lot of totally other stuff, a lot of old stuff like PJ Harvey and
oh hell yeah,
you know, John Frusciante and things like that. Also some contemporary electronic stuff out of Berlin that I'm really into, and even some old school hip hop. So it's a pretty wild ride. Like it starts in one place, much like the new Ocean record, and like concludes in a totally different place that you wouldn't necessarily expect when you listen to the first couple of tracks. So check that out.
That's awesome, man. I can tell just from talking to you for the past hour that we have a lot of stuff in common musically. So I really do hope that we cross paths, because I feel like we could talk about a lot of stuff off camera. But I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me. And honestly, dude, I'm so glad that I fucking decided to take a deep dive this week and realize what I've been missing out on, because it's everything I like about music rolled into one. A lot of the stuff that I'm listening to. So yeah, man, fucking
awesome, man. Good to hear that.
Yeah. Any final words or comments before we let you go?
I miss St. Vitus, man. It's been ages that played there, actually. I think it was in 2013 or 2014, but yeah, hopefully we'll get back to the States next year. Like I said, we're supposed to tour this summer, which got blown off because of all the bullshit, but we're itching to get back over there. We don't love America, but we love touring America, and it's always been great, you know, and like it's just been too long. So we're definitely working on making that happen and coming back over there next year.
Let's get you back at St. Vitus, man. Seriously.
Yeah, totally.
A tiny club watching you guys do your thing would be great right now. Stay safe, and I'm so glad we got to meet, even though it was virtual. And congratulations on your new record. I wish you nothing but positivity and success.
Thanks, man. And everyone, check out the latest Spotify EP. It's fucking sick.
Thank you, brother.
Spotlight, not Spotify.
Good. I got you, man. Take it easy, brother.
Take it easy.
Thanks, everybody. That was great. if you missed the first part, you can watch the whole thing right after on St. Vitus IGTV, and it will be on my YouTube channel. Look up Christopher Enriquez on YouTube, and you'll find the full episode along with all the other past episodes. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.